Hi, my name is Brian Knight from Pragmatic Works, and in today's video, we're going to focus on some awesome UI tips that will help take your user interface and Power Apps to the next level. So stay tuned. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder, much like my quarantine haircut I am sporting right now. And likewise, the user interface tips I'm going to give you today might appeal to you or they might not. And it's okay if they don't. But please go ahead and post your comments down below on what UI tips that you do to make your user interfaces inside of Power Apps pop a little more also. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you about 4 or 5 ideas that might make your user interfaces feel a little bit more mature in Power Apps. So first of all, I have a basic application here that has nothing at all done to it other than adding the data sources to it. And what the requirements are, I'm going to go ahead and add a gallery on the left, have a header bar up top, and have some information in the middle here that I want to share with the user of that application. So the first thing we have to think about is what kind of color scheme we want to use. That seems like a really simple idea. In many cases it is. In many cases your company might have a branding guide that they want you to use and you don't get a whole lot of choices in Manner. But if you do have some choices, a great free website you can try is this website called Color Lovers. And this helps you browse some predefined palettes, some of which are pretty horrible and some of which are pretty nice. Now, for today's example, I'm going to use this palette we're seeing right now, which mirrors my favorite football team, the Jaguars. Now, because of that, of course, some of these colors may not appeal to you at all, but we're going to go ahead and go forward so I can kind of show you the core concepts here. The first thing we can do is I go down here, we'll see all the RGB colors for each of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this black color, grayish color as my header. I'll use this as my sidebar, and I'll use this next color maybe like right here as an accent color. So that kind of not quite so harsh, but maybe an accent color right here. So I'm going to grab these RGB colors here. What we could do is we could drop these in to a header and a sidebar and a footer and just move on. In my case, though, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go over to my application, and first thing I'm going to do is go to my tree view here, select my app, and I'm going to go to the app on start and start to add these variables to my app on start. Now, there are a few ways we can do this, of course. We could do components for our header and our sidebar. That's probably the preferred way if you want to go through and create a component you can use over and over again for your company. Or we could create our header and refer back to that header's color over and over again. But in my case, I like to have a shorthand I can use over and over again. So I'll create my first one called var header color. Okay, and I'll make that a set command here. Paste in my RGB color here, and add a 1 at the end, and put my close parenthesis. Then I'll have one called. Let's go ahead and call this one sidebar color. That'll be my RGBA. And then you go back to the website again to find out what that palette looks like. Okay, that's this guy right here. There we go. Paste that in with a 1 at the end. And my last one's going to be my accent color. So I'll call this var accent color. Again, RGBA. Go back to my website one last time, and let's use this as an accent. Not quite as obnoxious as that last one. I kind of like that last one, but it's just me, I think. And let's go ahead and paste this one in with a comma 1. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can kind of test our colors. Is it going to work right here? Looks like we got some underlines here, so it's probably not happy. Looks like I'm missing a close parenthesis right there. That's one problem. And I'm missing a comma right there. All right, so now that I've done that, we should be able to see the colors as I kind of go down. There's my dark color, there's my dark gray color, and there's my tealish kind of accent color. I'm going to run the on-start event. What's nice about this is if I want to change this, the customer sees my color scheme, they hate the color scheme, we can go through then and change this, just changing a few variables at that point. So let's go ahead and drop our first gallery in for that sidebar. And this gallery is just going to have the titles of our trade shows. So I'll go over to the titles here, and I'll drop our trade show in. There we go. And then I'll make sure I select for this title. Let's just make sure we have the trade show name here. Okay, there we go. And let's make this a little skinnier and a little higher. Now we can go through and shorthand here, we can go through and go to the home, click fill, and it will kind of hop over the colors. But in my case, I already know my color. It's going to be var sidebar color. There we go. Now, because this is a pretty dark color, we'll want to make sure we also go with a white font color. And then let's also make it bold as well for this text as well. So just you don't want to have that as a light text. You want to make sure it really make that pop out. Next, our header color. So let's on this one, I'm going to go to my insert ribbon. And there's a few ways you can do this. Again, this is a great use case for a component. In my case, though, let's just start with a rectangle. Let's pop that up top. Don't worry, we're going to fix that color. Okay, and let's go ahead and go to our fill color again. Again, shorthand, hit the fill button, and I'll call this just var header color. There we go. Okay, now a few more things we can do in this to ultimately make this pop a little more. One thing is we want to make sure that the customer knows what item they selected from the sidebar there. So we want to make sure we really show them that when they select Trade Show 1 over here, that ultimately it shows them that they have that selected. So I'm going to select my gallery again, and I'm going to go over to my template fill property, and then I'm going to do a quick if condition. So if this item, the row I have selected, dot is selected, there we go, then I want to use the var accent color. Otherwise, use the var sidebar color. There we go, and that should be good enough. And that is pretty bold, to say the least, color here, but you're getting the idea of what you can do with these colors. All right, kind of make this a little bit thinner here. We, of course, can adjust our font size and all that to create a little more real estate. But as you can see, this is a pretty bold color, but it is what it is. So our next step is we want to go ahead and I like to have some type of background color for the application. Whatever you do, do not do a background image for your application because it's going to distract the user from using the app, and it's also going to draw their eyes constantly to the background. It becomes a little hard, the text becomes a little hard to kind of bleeds into the text as well. So try avoiding that if all possible, unless your internal customer really wants that. So on the fill here, I'm going to go a super light background, maybe this light gray right here, or something like that. Okay, so that's what stands out a little bit. I'll go one of these color shades gray here, so it kind of mutes that bright color right that we're seeing there. Okay, with that now done, we want to go ahead and add a section here for showing the information that you selected on the left. So we could just drop in some text. I'm going to show you a few ways of doing this. I'm going to drop in some labels here. All right, now we could do a gallery and reference the same data set we already selected, but instead of doing that, even though the columns aren't here that we selected, so let's go ahead and just do a key pair here. I'll select my text, and then I'll copy and paste that, and I'll put my value. So let's go ahead and call this just booth size, and the actual booth size next to it. Now we could do a whole gallery. In this case, though, we already have the item selected. So why not just go ahead and reference the item we already have selected in the gallery? So I have this called gallery1.selected, and I want to get the booth size, so it's called booth size. There we go. And now we're seeing the booth size next to it. So it's kind of getting bled out because of this grayish background. So we, of course, want to go and bold certain elements here to make it stand out a little more. But in my case, this is kind of getting lost. So what I like to do is a few options you can do here. I'm going to go to Insert and drop an icon in again, and I'll do my rectangle. Okay, there it is. And I'll pop this over here. We'll go ahead and send this to the back, reorder it to the background, all the way in the back. There we go. And then the color of this, let's just make a nice white color for the fill color. Here we go. And then we can kind of stretch this to leave a little bit gray on all sides. And this is if you prefer a kind of a flat background with no kind of texture to it or any of that. So this looks pretty darn good for drawing your attention to the areas that I want you to see. The other alternative we could do is we could do like a drop shadow here. So if you want more of a textured background instead, our alternative is to go to Insert, and we can do under text here, an HTML text. And then we could put some div code inside of this to actually make it more of a drop shadow. So I happen to have that here, and I happen to have copied that into the comments down below as well for you to use and alter for your own liking. So I can then adjust this. There we go. And then a few things we have here. Of course, we want to change the width of it. There we go, to make it more fit that. So we can see here, this is about a 949 pixel wide box that I have created right now. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to be 949 by about 231. So right here, we have our height right here. Is right now width is 940. And then my height was about 200 and, actually 200 is about perfect, I think, isn't it? And then you'll also, so I get rid of this, we'll slide this in, send it to background again. And a few things you're going to see, it looks pretty flat still. So we could create more a drop shadow by changing these pixels right here. And it's showing you where's the pixel going to be. It's top, bottom, left, right. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this and kind of make a little bit of a more of a dark one on the bottom here. You can also adjust your colors to outside of a gray, but now you're starting to see a little more texture in our drop shadow now. So now we've got some basic area we can kind of put some stuff into. Now that we've done that, let's go and get rid of my face so we can see a few more things here. So we have our drop shadow. Now, what we also may want to do is we also might want to put some tabs in here to kind of, we're running out of real estate potentially. So we want to go ahead and put some extra stuff inside of here. So let's go ahead and first of all drop another gallery in first. So I'm going to drop a new, I'll just do a blank gallery here. And I'm going to put different types of action items, different items. Here we go. Okay. And then let's go ahead and make that in the space right here. And of course, we'll use a white background for that, just to kind of give it a little more of a pop there. There we go. And we, of course, want to make sure that this is a little bit higher up so people can actually see this. Now, tabs are a great way to use some space if you're running out of space. So in my case, I've created a item in a different data set in my case for the tab names. There's two ways you can do that. One way you can do that is with the table command, where you call a table command, say tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, and list all the tabs you want. The second way, in my case, I wanted the users to be able to create their own tabs and add more information inside of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have different categories of objects as my tab names, and then when you select those, it will filter the gallery down below it. So I'm going to have to create ultimately a couple galleries here. So let's go ahead and drop in one more gallery. This will be a blank horizontal gallery to represent my tabs. These are going to be my action item types. Okay, there we go. Now you're not seeing a whole lot yet, and that's okay. This is going to be my header right here. There we go. And then what I like to do is I'll hit the little button right here. See, this is my space I can put a tab in. It's a little too large right now, but we'll come back to that. I'm going to drop a button in. Okay. Now again, it's way too much real estate right now, so go ahead and skinny that down a little bit. Okay, kind of create all the space we want. And you can see all the tabs. I haven't actually named them yet, but you're kind of starting to see them form. We, of course, can create some padding here. Now, for buttons, this might make a great use case for an accent color. So we'll come back to that in a moment. But right now, first of all, let's change the text of this. So where it says button, let's go ahead and select this text. Find my text here. There we go. And let's take the word button out here. And we have this item dot, and we should have a name. Oh, there it is. Name right there. Okay, so we're starting to see stuff form. We, of course, can skinny this down to where things all fit inside of this. Got a little too much padding, but we're starting to get there now. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we probably want to make it where, hey, I want to see, there we go. I want to make it look more like a tab. Like right now, it looks really, really flat as you're seeing this. Kind of look at that right now. It looks like a button right now, and that's not going to be acceptable for my users. So over here in the advanced properties of that button, so make sure you select the button first, and then for the advanced properties, we want to set some radiuses to ultimately make that feel like a tab. So first of all, top left, let's go like a 20 radius, so kind of curve the outer edge. Same thing here on the top right. So now we're starting to curve. Bottom left, I'll go 0. And bottom right, 0. Okay. Now it's starting to look like a tab. I also want to tell which item is selected. So you've already seen this code one time. Let's go ahead and make that ultimately a header color or an accent color. So again, when you have that item selected, I'll go back to my template fill color. So I'll select the gallery, go over to my template fill. There we go. On this one, we'll say, again, if this item is selected, there we go, then let's use var accent. Otherwise, let's go use var header. Oh, and that's the wrong option there. I actually wanted the button color because I'm not actually setting the color of the background here. I'm doing the color of the button. So I'm going to go look for the color of the button here. Here it is. And drop in the same code you just saw there. There we go. Oh, that's a color for the actual text. I'm not betting too well here. It's a fill color for that button. It's one of those mistakes you constantly make as you're doing this. There we go. There we go. So now it's starting to look a little cleaner now. So as I select these buttons here, now of course we'd also want to change the hover button color you're seeing right there. And you'll find that property, again, that's one of the hover properties here. So as I go into here, you'll see a hover fill and a hover color. That's the font, and that is the fill color. So we could also say, let's go ahead and make that var, what am I not using here? I'll use my header, my sidebar color. There we go. So now as I hover over these, we can see it kind of turns teal while I hover over it, and I can select comments, and we can kind of see what's happening now as I do it. So kind of using the same color palette all across the board now. Of course, now the last thing that we want to do is you may want to simulate a gallery without actually using a gallery. So we want to make it look like a table inside using a gallery control. So I have this gallery right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, so I made it a blank gallery. I'm going to drop in, first of all, a text box, a little label here. There we go. And here is my action item name, which is things like, all right, book your hotel room. Okay. And I'll clone this one more time. Okay, let's go ahead and make this one. That's our action item name. And what else do we have in this table? Something else good, I think. Let's go ahead and find maybe the description of the action item. All right, book staff hotels. Now we want to go ahead and skinny this down a little bit so it looks like it's all one piece. I'm going to move this up top. Move this up top. There we go. And we'll skinny this. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like a table. There we go. The reason I like galleries instead of tables is they have you a lot more options here. I can add icons inside of it. I can put other things in there to make it look a lot cleaner. So in this case, now that the gallery is relatively done, I'm going to bump this down just a little bit more, and we're going to put our header text up here. So again, for this one, I'm going to drop in a quick label again. Okay, and this is going to be outside the gallery. Okay, so you want to kind of keep it lined up here. This first one will be action name. In my example here, I'm going to clone that. Oops, not clone that, but clone the actual label here. Actually, before I clone that, let's go ahead and put our color in here. Let's go to our fill color. And let's use that teal color. So I'll use that sidebar color again. So var sidebar color, there we go. And we'll use our white text and our bold. Okay, so now we're starting to see where we're going with this. I'm going to copy and paste that one more time. And let's go ahead and make that stretch the entire spectrum of that. And I'll call this just action description. And so on and so on and so on. So we, of course, would want to make sure this is all properly lined up and make sure. And one of the tricks we can do to make that happen, by the way, let's first of all find what the name is. It's called label 3. Let's call this label header action name or something like that. Now, if you want to make sure this is exactly lined up here, so the Y quadrant in my case, we can go ahead and say, all right, for this one, take the Y, and let's make sure it's a label header action name .y, and now it should be exactly lined up to the other spectrum there. So now we can go ahead and increase the size of this just a little bit. We can decrease the width of it like this, so it all fits inside of here, and the gallery looks a lot cleaner now, I think. So let's kind of play it so we can kind of see. And we have a little bit of work to do. We, of course, could shrink this down a little bit to where it all kind of fits in there as well. So what we've done so far is we've created these little white areas that really pop. It takes this gray and really makes it kind of pop out a little more. We've also made it where this gallery feels more like a table. And we can, of course, put some separators in there and do those kind of things to make it look more like that. But you get the idea, right? This is kind of taking our gallery and making it feel more like a table. And the why I like doing that is now I can put things like, I don't know, like a trash can, for example. So if I were to put a delete icon in here, this is the kind of stuff that becomes really difficult to do if you are doing this inside of a table. You can click on the text in there, but adding things like icons and all those kind of things become really, really difficult. So let's kind of play this one more time and take a look at that. So we have the beginnings of a pretty nice application, and just to kind of be a little hyper sensitive here, let me go ahead and drop in the label of our application. There we go. And of course, on the left bar, you might actually put things like, what is your logo for the company? I find logos a little bit, if it's a logo for the company you work at, you likely know what application you're in. So you likely know this is a company application. So why waste that space? Instead, you might want to use that for, hey, you're logged in as Brian Knight, for example, or Chuck Jones, or whatever. So I'll go ahead and call this is my app name. Okay, and one thing that you might like to do is you might want to go ahead and add in here something like logged in as, and do like a user. I need my %, and do like a user open close parenthesis dot this full name, so the user can easily see what they're logged in at. And you might put their their picture or something like that also. This does not warrant being bolded probably. There we go. Can unbold that. And you can also make this a minor player by shrinking this down to 14 font of some sort and put your picture right there. So we have the beginnings of a good-looking application. It is my teal color for my favorite team, so of course you may not like that also, but I'm really curious what you guys do in your applications also. So we showed you a few things. We showed you the fill colors. We showed you how to simulate a tab. We showed you how to do things like adding drop shadows, and we also showed you how to make a gallery simulate a table. Now, other things you might decide to do is on this, you could have overlaid that drop shadow over here as well. Of course, there's no filter on this right now, so as I hop around tabs, we're not seeing any kind of filter, so we have to fix that as well. I also find that a lot of people like to put this logged in information in the bottom left and put icons on this to make it look really, really sophisticated also. All right, well, I know this is a very rudimentary video to kind of get you started on your journey of building a proper user interface, but it's oftentimes difficult to kind of know where to start. So I hope this kind of got you some ideas on some areas you can kind of start. Again, that website I've mentioned before is colorlovers, spelled the British way.com, and I put the HTML code down in the comments, and please do subscribe and let me know what you think of UI practices that you might want to use as well. Have a great day, and thanks for watching this video on user interface tips. Thanks.